Hey, Mr. Estrada here, and our learning target is I can factor trinomials that require multiple steps. So I want to begin by warming up a little bit here. I want you to factor this expression completely. And this is something that we've already covered in our previous videos, GCF factoring. So what you're supposed to do is take out the greatest common factor of the two terms. So the greatest common factor is 6. So we're going to factor out a 6. And then we're going to open a parentheses. Here, you do not factor out a variable. So do not factor out a variable. And the reason is because both terms do not have a variable. So that's important. You got to know that if both terms, or if the terms in a polynomial, if all of them don't have a variable, you don't factor out a variable. So do not factor out a variable if all the terms do not have the variable. All right, so now remember the steps of factoring. So we're just undoing the multiplication. 6 multiplied by what will give me 24x? Well, 6 times 4x will give me 24x. 6 times what will give me positive 6? 6 times positive 1. So this is our answer. Okay, so let's get to what we want to get to today. This is an example of what I want to do today. I want to factor expressions like this that require multiple steps. And then you can see the steps that I have listed here, and they will help you factor out an expression like this. So the first step says to factor out the GCF and the variable with the lowest exponent if necessary. In this case, it's necessary because all the terms have a variable, so it's not like our warm-up. Here, you're going to have to factor out the variable with the lowest exponent. All right, so first, take out the GCF. So what's the GCF of negative 240, 50, and 10? Well, we could factor out a 10, because we know 10 goes into 10, 10 goes into 50, and 10 goes into negative 240, and that's the greatest number that goes into all of these numbers. So now we have to also factor out the variable with the lowest exponent, and then that will be x. So we're going to factor out 10x. Open parentheses. Now 10x multiplied by what will give me negative 240x? Well, 10x multiplied by negative 24 will do the trick. 10x multiplied by what will give me positive 50x squared? Well, 10x multiplied by 5x will give me 50x squared. Because remember, that x times that x will give me that x squared I'm looking for. And then 10x multiplied by what will give me 10x to the third power. So that's going to be 10x multiplied by 1 to get that 10, and then by x squared to get that x to the third. Because that x squared times this x will give me that x to the third. So we did the first step. We factored out the GCF and the variable with the lowest exponent, and we went ahead and filled in the inside of the parentheses. Okay, now we're going to rearrange the terms inside the parentheses. So we're going to rearrange these terms, and we want them to look like this. We want them to look like ax squared plus bx plus c. So that means the x squared needs to be first. So it's going to be x squared plus bx, so the plus 5x needs to be second. And the minus 24 will be last. So we rearranged the terms. That was our second step. Okay, and don't forget to bring down the 10x. Okay, now we're ready for the last step. The last step is to factor the trinomial. So we have to factor the trinomial, what's inside the parentheses, and that's something we just covered in our last video. So I need to find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add up to 5. But first, I got to write x and x here. So what two numbers multiply to negative 24 but also add up to 5? Well, I know that a combination of 8 and 3 will give me that 24, and I know that I can just play with the signs to make them add up to positive 5. So if I make this positive and I make this negative, 8 times negative 3 multiplies to negative 24, and 8 minus 3, or 8 plus negative 3, will give me 5. So this is my final answer. All right. That's how you do it. It's just 3 basic steps. Let's go over them again. Factor out the GCF and the variable with the lowest exponent. So the GCF was 10 and the variable with the lowest exponent was x. So then you fill out inside of the parentheses. Then you're going to rearrange the terms inside of the parentheses so that they look like ax squared plus bx plus c. And then you're going to factor the trinomial. So you got to find two numbers that multiply to c and add up to b. And then that was 8 and negative 3 for us. All right, I hope this video helps. Take care.